Welcome, mortals. Just when you thought airport security couldn't get any weirder, this week we're talking about the truly stomach-turning discovery at a South Korean airport. Capsules containing actual human flesh. Yep, you heard that right. But before you lose your lunch, let's explore why this isn't just a modern shocker. We are chewing through humanity's long, dark, and utterly bizarre connection to child sacrifice and cannibalism in a two-part episode. In a chilling modern twist, we'll ask, how are we in today's world still grappling with the ultimate taboo of offering children to deities or consuming human remains? And how are these stories still gripping headlines? It's an episode that promises to be unforgettable on the Parallax Podcast.
Hi, Willow.
Hello, Carissa. It's been forever.
Yes. Again. We try, people. We really do. It's just like life.
Oh my gosh. We have been so busy, and we do the best we can to show up here on the Parallax Podcast. But we also want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to bring you good and somewhat reliable content as well. Yes. So we have to make sure that we're giving ourselves enough time to prepare fully. And that's why if we don't feel like we've got the correct information or enough information or a good enough grasp on the topic, we are not going to bring it to the Parallax Podcast. And Carissa's gone to save her cat, and she's back.
Oh my gosh, no, she flew, like she shoved the door open. Ori, because Ori belongs in here. Augie, when she's in here and the door shut, she's like, excuse me, I need the door open at all times. I'm like, no. Anyways.
Ori was like, let me, not Ori. Yeah, Ori. Ori was like, let me in.
Yes.
This is my place.
She didn't ask. She just straight came in. So.
She wanted to hear about the cannibals.
Well, sorry. We're talking about child sacrifice first.
Ooh, sorry. Okay, so quick warning. We're talking about child death. So it is going to be perhaps a heavy topic in some points. So if that is something that is too heavy for you, you can listen to the next episode that dives a little bit more into cannibalism itself. I mean, both of them are heavy, but if child death is something that you don't feel like you can handle right now, that is completely fine. We will see you in another episode.
Yes, I would fast forward to the 3 episodes from now.
Yes.
When that one's out, because we're going to do a palate cleanser and we're going to do time travel.
Yes, so there is going to be a palate cleanser, more fun episode after these 2 heavy ones. We promise.
Yes. And this episode came about because I was doing some research into something, and I found this case, and I sent it to Willow with. I only basically read the newspaper article. I did not dive into this any further, and so I left that to Willow. So I'm excited because I'm learning stuff as well about this case. I know the gist of it. I don't know the backside of it, and she's going to present that to us. I'm super excited.
Yes, and I'm going to do the best I can. My portion of these 2 episodes is going to be a little bit shorter than normal because we agreed that the topic of cannibalism in general is absolutely just giant. It's huge. Part of why we're splitting this into a 2-part episode. So I'm going to tell you everything I can, and then we're going to have a really good, hopefully crazy discussion about the cannibalistic side of this topic. So are you ready for me to jump in, Carissa?
We're going to talk about the child sacrifice in this one. Cannibalism is the next episode. So the child sacrifice part is extremely heavy as well, and there's a lot to it. So yeah, it's one of those things where I'm hoping that you learn something really cool about this as well. You know, me and the ancient cultures always jive.
I'm going to be morbidly fascinated by whatever it is you're about to bring to me.
Perfect. Well, let's get started with you, and let's share this crazy case.
All right. So today, I'm going to tell you about the capsules with powdered human flesh. It's literally what the article said. The location was South Korea, primarily in and around Incheon International Airport, which is one of the busiest transit points in East Asia. The time frame spans roughly 2011 through 2013 when customs officials began intercepting these unusual shipments entering the country. Now, they have found more, than what they found, obviously, in 2011, 2013, which is why we saw this news article. But that's when it started. And from what I was able to see on the different news sources and research, it appears like most of these capsules were found between the years of 2011 and 2013. So at first, these seizures appeared to be isolated. The seizures, like seizures of the capsules.
Oh, okay. The seizing of, okay. When you said seizures, I'm thinking like, wait a minute, are we back to episode 1?
No. Yeah, I'm just like, hey, by the way, we're gonna go all the way back there. Now, the seizing of the capsules appeared isolated. Customs officials inspecting incoming parcels from northeastern China discovered capsules, gelatin pill capsules, filled with a fine brownish powder. The packages were labeled in ways that suggested they were dietary supplements or traditional health products. When opened, obviously, these capsules did not quite resemble standard herbal medicine, and so they were sent off for laboratory testing, probably because the officials were suspecting drugs, like some kind of illicit drug, and instead, it was human flesh. The first confirmed seizure of the capsules occurred in 2011 when South Korean customs officials began flagging suspicious shipments entering the country. They contained plastic bottles or bags of the capsules. They were often labeled as stamina boosters or health supplements. Specifically, if I can find in my notes here, there was one that the people who were smuggling it in said that it was, I might butcher this, I'm so sorry. It's, I think, sibutramine? Sibutramine? SIBUTRAMINE. And it is a banned weight loss drug that can lead to heart problems. And so these smugglers thought that that's what they were smuggling in. And they claimed that they didn't know anything more about it. That they thought, oh, this is herbal medicine, or this is a stamina booster, or this is this weight loss drug. That's all it is. And they didn't know what was actually in there. However, DNA testing revealed that the material inside the capsules contained human genetic material. Further forensic examination determined that the powder had been derived from human tissue. So they began to do a little bit more of an investigation into what these capsules were, or what kind of human tissue there was. In one major announcement, officials stated that they had confiscated over 17,000 capsules across multiple shipments. It was stated that these capsules were not being manufactured domestically in South Korea and that they were being imported. And every single source that I was able to find did state that these were imported from China. That was one thing that never changed. Now, sometimes there's not tons of information out there about this specific case. There were times where what they were, like the article would say what the capsules were labeled as would change, how they were brought into the country would change, whether it was luggage or sent through international mail, and they would like find it in parcels. Some of those smaller details changed, but what did not change was what was actually inside the capsules. So I said, oh, this is made up of human tissue. Now, most of these capsules, and from what I can tell based on the research, the vast majority of the human tissue that was inside these capsules was tissues from human babies.
Terrible.
So there's that. And I am morbid and wondered, okay, so how can they tell that this powder is from a baby and not from an adult? And so I did do the morbid thing, and someone is looking at my Google history right now and is frightened because I did look up to see forensically, how can we tell that tissue, other than obviously if you have the entire body, you're able to look at gross anatomy. If you are not looking at gross anatomy of an entire human body, how can you tell that tissue is from an adult or from a baby? Typically, they're going to do this through a few different ways. There's microscopic analysis that's going to reveal baby bone powder versus adult bone powder. Apparently, baby bone powder contains a higher proportion of cartilage and organic materials, whereas the adult bone powder is more mineralized and brittle, which at first I was like, that's interesting. And now that I think about it, it makes a lot of sense because, for example, as you guys know, I work as a veterinary technician. And very similarly to human babies, puppies and kittens, when they're little tiny puppies and kittens, they're very loosey-goosey, just like
Way
human
more
babies
bones.
are. And when you take an x-ray of puppies or kittens, they look really funny because their joints haven't fully formed and mineralized, and they still have like their growth plates and stuff on their bones. So their bones look really spaced out because there's still a lot of cartilage there that needs to give room for the bones to grow. So when I thought about it, I was like, okay, actually, that does make sense why you're seeing a lot more cartilage in the bone powder of a human baby versus a human adult. There's also something called DNA methylation, or what another thing they kind of refer to it as the epigenetic clock, which uses specific biomarkers to estimate the age of the human tissue sample. So they can take the powder that they've been able to tell, okay, this is human tissue, and they are able to use the DNA methylation to figure out based on biomarkers within the DNA what the age of the sample is. There's
And this was in powder form?
yes.
And maybe you're going to answer this, but were the babies burned? Or were they like dead and then dehydrated and like ground up? Like this is so weird and so gross, but at the same time, I'm actually wondering what they did because it has a lot of linkings to what I'm gonna bring later. I'm just wondering.
So I have kind of an answer. It is not definitive. Based on the research that I was trying to do, looks like officials know a lot more than what they're reporting. But there's certain things that they won't answer and certain things that they won't say because they cite diplomatic issues with China. Who doesn't cite diplomatic issues with China when talking about things that have happened in China? But essentially, they're afraid of China being angry when they learn or if it comes out what is happening in China. So China is not allowing them to say what exactly is going on. But it sounds like from what they've been able to tell, something happened to the body of whoever was ground up. However they died, they died. The remains of that person were then dried, like set out in the sun to dry, and then ground into the powder and then put into the capsule.
So they were laid out there like a raisin?
Yes. Now, I think, because again, I couldn't find an exact like, oh, this is how much of the powder was bone. This is how much of the powder was soft tissue. I couldn't find that.
Well, no, probably because it'd be like, it's probably just like in a vast, like a vat of it. They just scoop it out into the pills, like a manufacturing situation.
And so that was one of those things where I don't know if they are just taking flesh and drying it, or if they're just like, if they're including the bones and the grinding up of the powder. We don't know. From everything I could find, I could not tell if it's like, oh, this is tissue from all kinds of parts, or this is just soft tissue, or this is just bone. I couldn't find that information. It sounds like the majority of it was from babies. I also could not find, I know this is morbid, but another thing I couldn't find that I also wondered about, I can't find if it's like or if they're able to tell if it is a mature baby in the sense of this baby has been born and was alive at some point, or if this was a fetus. So if this was
if it was an embryo, like a fetus situation, depending on development, it wouldn't have much bone structure.
And that's, again, the different ways that I stated were ways that they could tell that the powder was a baby and not an adult. Those are just ways that they're able to tell. They're not stated as, oh, we did this and this is how we could tell. They just said, based on forensic analysis, we know that this is a baby and not an adult. And so then I took the step to figure out what kinds of things you can do to figure out if tissue is adult or baby. And so again, I have no idea if there's bones, if there's bone powder that was in the powder, or if it's just flesh. Obviously, if they are using embryos, fetuses, it is just going to be soft tissue. If it is a mature baby, then you're going to see bone powder. But again, I don't know that one for sure. But it
I
was
feel like
something I
I
wondered.
honestly feel like if it was just flesh, that would be more disgusting. It's all disgusting.
It
But
all
if
is,
it's
no matter what.
but if it was just flesh, that means there is a removal of flesh from the body.
Exactly. Which then makes me think, I mean, obviously there's a system. Obviously there's a system for creating all these capsules.
And they're harvesting things, yeah.
To sit there and think, oh, we're harvesting and we're not we, but they're harvesting and then they're processing more than just like grinding something up. Like they are literally processing by removing the bones, removing the flesh, laying it out. Like it's so much more involved, which to those of us who are not cannibals, that is.
Can we reword that? For those of us who are not voluntarily cannibals.
For those of us, Carissa.
Wait till next episode.
Carissa. She's about to ruin my night, you guys. So that is all that I have when it comes to the child portion of this case. Again, there's not tons out there. That's why my portion is a little bit smaller. I'm going to bring you guys a little bit more information about these capsules in our next episode, but that is all I have as far as the unfortunate children go. And so I'm going to open it up for Carissa to ruin the rest of our nights here with her information.
Well, before we go into my stuff, something that I was thinking about when you were talking about this,
yeah,
and I knew that it had come from somewhere in China. That's all I knew. And this was between 2011, 2013. So the one thing that for me, one of the first things that stuck out was particularly that one child policy that China has had, which is now 2 children. Which I think that happened in let me see. I know it was in the 1900s, but I think the two-child thing has been most recently in the 2000s. Let me look this up.
Oh, I'm one step ahead of you. I'm already Googling.
Go for it. Because I know they had the one child. So in a sense, what do you do with the other child?
See, and that was something, oh my goodness. So China officially implemented the universal 2-child policy in January 1st of 2000. That is wild. That's so crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this policy could frame this whole, it's necessary to, which I'm going to get into, the necessity versus the ritualistic version of child sacrifice. I know that sounds terrible, but the necessity of certain context, that people were sacrificing their children because of whatever.
In China, I was going to say, kind of back to what you were saying with the one-child policy, I had watched a documentary because I'm a nerd about it. And they obviously, I hate to say obviously, but with the culture, parents wanted male children because they would carry on the family name. And there were people on this documentary who had grown up during that time and talked about people would be finding deceased female babies just on the side of the road.
Who's going to carry the babies? I mean, do they not understand how this works? Okay, you have that's the whole natural selection of you can't just get rid of the female babies because
then who's going to have
the future babies?
Exactly. But yeah, they would find these babies just thrown on the side of the road, thrown in a dumpster just because they didn't want the female. They wanted a male.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure there was a lot of sex selective abortions to before going full term. And then
I'm sure. Yeah.
And honestly, what's really bad, fun facts, that if your doctor or your nurse, I should say, when you're doing your ultrasound, says you're having a boy, you're having a boy. However, if they say you're having a girl, there's still a chance that the ovaries will drop into testicles. So
that's true.
You could prematurely have aborted your child.
Which is...
So it's a gender side, essentially, that's gone wrong. Yeah. But yeah, that's just, yeah. But I mean, this has to do with a whole, economic future and this whatever. But obviously it's what?
Yeah.
Would possess you to not just do birth control?
I know that's one thing. And I know that there were some ways around it, especially if you were in a more provincial area. You would just be greatly looked down upon, I guess, if you had another child, extra than the one child policy thing that was going on. But and it's wild to me. I don't have any children of my own yet, I just have fur babies. But I sit there and I think, how could you carry a child and birth a child and
Mhm.
then look at the child and go, oh, I'm just going to put it on the side of the street because I don't want that one. Like, that is a very, and obviously these people were living in a very different time and very different circumstances with a very different reality than what I am living in right now. And that is why it's hard for me to see. But that is one thing, especially watching that documentary, that I couldn't really wrap my head around, because I was like, how can you look at the child that you just birthed and be like, no, it was just wild to me.
All right. Well, let's move on to child sacrifice in the context of
Which is so much
cultural
better.
and religious practice. I mean, it kind of all ties in because that's just a modern version of
Mm-hmm.
infanticide, where you're basically getting rid of infants. You're
Yeah.
infanticizing for your beliefs of
Mm.
population control, not your beliefs of a deity. So that's a difference. And so let's start there.
All
All right.
right.
So because it's very crucial for us to distinguish the difference between infanticide, which is like disposing of the infants due to like poverty, gender selection, like we just talked in China,
Mm-hmm.
and population control for economic reasons or food supply, whatever it may be, versus a ritualistic sacrifice, which is more of the offering to a deity or power for a specific like purpose, like fertility, yielding more better crops, or you get rid of the one to save the multitude, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between the two. They both suck. They're both, for us in modern times, we're like, how could you? But we are not dealing with the same set of rules that people in ancient times were dealing with.
Mm-hmm. That's
To
true.
be able to say, I'm not justifying this at all. What I'm just saying is that, there's a
Exactly.
driving force for a lot of things that people are doing, and they were seeing the world way different than what we see it now. So,
Exactly.
right. So when you're thinking of infanticides versus ritualistic sacrifice, think of them kind of like, I wrote this at like a family heirloom or donating to a national museum. So, or like you're with the infanticide, that's kind of like you get something from your grandmother. It's this thing, but you have to sell it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
You have a utilitarian purpose. Like you have to get something from this. Because of a personal problem. It's solving a need.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that is. Ritual sacrifice, on the opposite, is like donating something to a museum where the primary source is driving you for a higher purpose, like
Mm-hmm.
preservation of your future soul or,
Or
you
what
know,
have you. Yeah.
the community. Yeah, your legacy. This is something that's seen as like more transcendent value. So it's like, even like, I feel like one's almost a disposable, the other one's gives even though it sucks, ritualistically.
Mm-hmm.
It's putting more value on the child you're sacrificing.
Yeah, I remember it kind of makes me think about, and I'm sure you're going to get into this here in just a second, but it makes me think about like people who at the time do some of these ritualistic sacrifices. They probably see it as an honor that in some ways, in some cases, they may see it as an honor that their child is the one that has been chosen, selected for whatever sacrifice.
Well, yeah, and that's also a point, is the fact that the infanticide would be something that was more private, something that would be more to solve your personal problem. Like you're not going to put that on a public display, versus ritual sacrifices are going to be more public, more ceremonial, and meant to create more of like an audience for the impact. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're going to focus more on the ritual sacrifice. I want to talk about some like the theology, like the power, the religion, the value, all these other things, how ancient people conceptualize their relationship and the unpredictability of their gods. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And how like these elites would, like people, these kings and stuff that were in the human realm, used these rituals to demonstrate like their control and their communication with these deities. Again, I said, we're dealing with different situations in modern times. We have science to understand the weather. We have science to understand how the earth is, works. That doesn't, again, for those who listen, that does not get rid of the power of God, because I feel like sometimes when I'm talking about science, people think that I'm dismissing God. No, God put everything into play. Everything that happens after that part is kind of like its own working system. Like if it breaks down, it's because your watch needs a new battery, or whatever. That doesn't mean that God just like, killed your battery. Not that he couldn't or whatever, but that's not That's not how
Yeah.
that's not how it works. Anyways, on my spectrum, I should say, it doesn't work that way. Also, we also have to consider, we've talked about this before, those who write the history are those who won the war.
Exactly.
When we talk about other cultures, sometimes we're reading it from other historical documents from the winning side that may be talking about their counterpart in the most negative light.
That's
You know what I
true.
mean?
Mhm.
So we have to kind of think about that when we're talking about these things. I mean, there are some cool archaeological things coming out now that they have to kind of look and say, well, maybe they weren't being overly whatever about this group. Maybe this was how it was. Let's
Mhm.
get into some of those, because the propaganda of child sacrifice has kind of been in the news lately.
Just a little
A
bit.
little bit, yeah, just a little bit, and
Just
cannibalism
slightly.
that may or may not have been the fuel for these episodes.
That might have been how we came about this, but we're
Yeah,
we'll let that be what it
we'll
is.
just move on. We're just taking the topics and doing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I broke down a couple historical archaeological examples of cultures that did child sacrifice. So the Inca, these were
That's the
arguably
first
the
one I
most
thought of.
well, and they're arguably the most reverent form. So, which
Okay.
is the children often, like, they were physically perfect and beautiful, were selected. So there was like you said, it's an
Wow.
honor to be
Okay.
given for this ritual. And these children were given like this intoxicant, and then they were taken high upon these mountain peaks and left to die from exposure or killed by maybe wildlife or
Wow.
something, or maybe by one of the people that were taking them up there, and
Mhm.
as an offering to the gods to ensure stability, fertility, and the health of their emperor. Again, that piety that's like up there,
Mhm.
also taking from this sacrifice. So
Wow.
these beautiful children were seen as messengers from God that they basically need to give back to God.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
here's the question. Does that mean the rest of the Inca people were just ugly?
What?
Like, if you're
Like
killing all the pretty ones off, like, you're just screwing up the rest of the genetic code. We're gonna have a bunch of ugly Incas.
that's why they look specifically the way they do because they chose.
It's a hate crime here.
They're like, "Wow,
Beautiful
you're
die.
beautiful. You must die."
Right? Right?
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
so then we know about the Maya. The Maya people, there's evidence from their sacred writings and stuff at the Chichen Itza that's on the walls and stuff like that, and some of the things that are left behind there. These things at the site suggest that children were sometimes sacrificed to their rain god, especially during like long droughts.
Wow.
So
Okay.
the ideology was that children equals innocence and tears equal rain, which
Oh my gosh. Oh.
yes, yeah, and so like even the Aztecs, like the Aztecs, like I mean the Aztecs, we know them because they do the like human heart thing.
Yes.
Aside from the human heart sacrifice, that they had children that were also sacrificed, particularly to the rain god, and they required that their children would be crying to produce tears at the same time for that potent, like, expression of sacrifice.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yes.
Now, quick question for you because I've been doing this podcast with you for long enough. I think I'm starting to figure out how your brain works. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
now the Inca, the Mayans, and the Aztecs,
Mm-hmm.
my knowledge of them is very base level, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that they were from relatively the same region. And when I say
Right.
relatively, just North America.
Central, yeah, Central
Central,
and South America, yeah.
or yeah, I'm sorry, not North America, Central and South America. Excuse
Mm-hmm.
me. Do you think that the fact that all three of these civilizations all had child sacrifice, do you think the connection is that they had influence on each other, or that there was perhaps another factor that influenced them to all have this in their culture?
Can you ask me that question at the end
Yes.
after I talk about the Israelites?
Girl, oh my God. Okay, I got you.
Well, I'll just put it this way. There are historical things that suggest that some people left the um the Jerusalem, the era, like the area of the Middle East. There are suggestions that
Hmm.
there are certain people who left the Middle East, where Israel is and stuff, and where all these people here left and went over to the New World in Central and South America.
Okay.
This is actually a Mormon belief
Oh,
that there is a certain group of people that actually 2 groups, but the first group, the Jaredites, left and went over there. So that doesn't mean they all went over there, all these great people. People spawn off.
oh yeah.
But these would be all people who would be around the original Israelite people and around a lot of the Canaanite people. And so there's a tie that ritualistic things that were being done then could have been pushed over that way, possibly. I don't know.
Okay.
So there is a tie if you're thinking about, like, if one religion says that there were people that left and went over there years ago
Mm-hmm.
and kind of were a part of some of those cultures. I don't know. I mean, there's also, but ask me it again because then I'm going to bring something else up later in these notes about something, a few episodes we've talked about.
All right, I gotcha. I'll remember.
Okay. Yeah, I think I might even put them in the notes here. Like, remember when we talked about this? This is kind of a tie-in.
All
I think I
right.
wrote it down, or I was like mentally thinking, oh, I'll remember, and then I won't remember.
I remember it.
Yeah. Well, so, okay, so these are the ones of the Americas. And then the next one I want to talk about is Carthage. Carthage was probably the most famous, more debatable example because this is from the source of the ancient Romans who claimed that it was child sacrifice to God, the god Baal, that these people were practicing. Like, these were things that came from another source. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But there were thousands of urns containing cremated infant and animal bones that have been found in their sacred precinct, which is called a tophet.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and tophet is like a word that originates in the Hebrew Israelite text. So this is something that has come forward in, as far as
Interesting.
overlap.
Okay.
And so, in archaeologists have kind of like taken that word, the tophet, even though it comes from the Israelite text, talking about these sites where the remains would be left. They've taken that as kind of like an emotional word they've attached to what is happening in these sites where there are essentially baby remains.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways, so we have to, like I said, we have to understand that the Romans and the Carthaginians were at war for a better part of like 200 years or more. Okay. So these two groups of people did not like each other. So when the Romans painted this graphic picture of the Carthaginians using child sacrifice, there were a lot of people in the 20th century that kind of dismissed it as an over-exaggeration of their enemy. But there are actual factual reports now from archaeologists where they're like, actually, that might have been a thing based on the way things were done. We don't know how barbarian or like as far as total accounts, because most of it, like I said, came from the Romans, but there's something to it. The way that it's being found as far as like child sacrifices were potentially happening, especially since when the Romans and the Carthaginians were at war, it was total destruction, and then Rome basically just built their city over top of them. Like,
That sounds very Roman.
very Roman, right. They literally built their city. They buried this destruction with their own rebuilding.
Wow.
Yeah, but it wasn't in the 20th century, they rediscovered some of these ancient places. It brought back the debate into modern time. And so now there is a paper I read from Oxford. It's from Oxford, darling. Hold on.
Right from
It's
Oxford
the ancient
University.
Carthaginians really did sacrifice their children. And it was this Dr. Quinn, not medicine woman, Dr. Quinn from Oxford that wrote a really cool paper on why they think that it's possible that they did do this versus not do this.
What they would have done it for, what they would have seen it as.
Right.
type
And
of-
yeah, I mean, obviously slander comes with its own, terms and conditions when you're writing about your enemies. But the fact that the child sacrifice was happening and the way that was, I mean, they're put in urns. So that's not just like, it's being put in an urn with other animal bones, which ties into what we'll talk about next as far as what is asked of them by Baal or Moloch, the Moloch ritual. All right. So these are like, okay, so we've got the Americans. Now we're over here in ancient Rome and the Carthaginians, which I think the Carthaginians might have lived. And I'm terrible at this part here, remembering. I think it might be modern day Lebanon would be the area possibly where that would have been.
Well, I won't correct you because I don't know, but
Yeah, I can't remember. My brain is thinking that their city was modern day Lebanon because it's kind of like where things intersect. I'm just trying to
It's in
remember,
that
but
general area.
yes, it's somewhere in the Levant. There's a whole area of the Middle East. It's called the Levant, and that
Okay.
area is kind of the biblical area, the area of that time. So,
Okay. Gotcha.
anyways,
I'm tracking.
all right. So I've already told you what the Tophet is because it's like
Mhm.
this, sacred burial cemetery of places where you find these little urns and stuff like that with the baby bones and stuff, or the baby remains in there. Okay. Okay, so one thing I wanted to also, like I told you that this word has been borrowed from the Hebrew Bible from the archaeologists. The word Topheth is used in Jeremiah 7:31, and this is where Yahweh is
Yep.
basically telling, yeah, huh?
I was saying yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry.
No, this is basically where Yahweh's not happy with what they're doing, and he's talking about the high places of Topheth in that valley where they burn their sons and daughters by fire. That's why I asked you earlier, do they know
Oh,
if they burned them or how they did this?
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, they would essentially burn them
Wow.
as an offering. Anyways, now let's move more to the Middle East. Like there's the Levant, which is kind of next to the Middle East, and then there's the Middle East.
Then
So
there's the actual Middle East.
I mean, it's all kind of overlapping at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. It's
Okay.
weird. Yeah, but okay, the Bible. Let's talk about the Bible references. This is where
Okay. The Bible.
yeah, the Bible. Let's talk about it. Anyways, so the ancient areas near the east. So near the east side of all this what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reference in the Bible that passing children through the fire to the god Moloch in the kingdom of Judah and Israel, which the Hebrew prophets condemned. They were like, this is not what God wants you to do. This is a central theological point setting in early Judaism that sets itself apart from their neighbors. In the early parts of the Bible, there's this running story of the Israelites, how the Israelites have kind of gone astray. I mean, every time we've got the flood, you've got all these things that these people are doing, and they keep getting in trouble, and then they're like, oh gosh, we did something in trouble, and God sent us the flood. Oh my gosh, we did something, and then we get into exile. Oh my gosh, we did something. We've been stuck in Egypt for 400 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these times that what's happening is groups of Israelites keep going astray to the God of their neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So how much of this do you know?
I know it vaguely, kind of basically in the sense of I know they kept doing things to go astray and then they would get punished. And a lot of these big events were the punishments for these people doing things that were leading them astray from God.
Right.
That's
So
kind of my understanding.
Right. So again, stressing the fact that I do not, at any standpoint, disbelieve in God. I believe in God. What I don't believe in is man's interpretation of God that sets a precedent that everybody else has to follow.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible itself in the Old Testament is huge with people. I don't know if you've ever heard people talk about like the God of the Old Testament versus the God of the New Testament.
Mm-hmm. I actually do hear that sometimes.
Yeah, and it's because the God of the Old Testament is so like mood swingish.
Mood swing.
Well, because it's like destruction, but I love you.
Destruction, but I love you.
Right. So
that sounds very toxic.
It's so toxic. But I personally, this is my personal feelings, feel like there is a strange overlap of misunderstanding by the people who wrote it that may have given when they put the Bible together, may have put together a confusion between the worshiping of Baal and the worshiping of Yahweh.
Okay, of two different deities. Okay.
Right. I'm sure you've heard the word Baal and Moloch.
A few times.
And Moloch is definitely something that's been brought up recently in the trending times.
Quote, trending times. Extra emphasis. Italics.
Yes. Okay, so here's the challenge. And this again comes from the outsiders looking in and screwing up the understanding. Because, and I'm not, again, I'm giving you the the study, not the theory or the like the real meaning behind anything that is someone's belief or not belief. This is
Mm-hmm.
the identity. The identity of Baal, which is meaning Lord or Master,
Mm-hmm.
was not a single god, but a title and a role. Okay, so this is a title and a role that is given to a divine king, the storm god that brings rain, fertility, agricultural abundance. Like he was the central active god of the Canaanite and later like the Phoenician pantheon people. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Some of the mythology in the texts of like the Ugarit, which is an ancient Canaanite city, like it's about 1300 BC.
Okay.
This is where Baal is specifically considered to be a hero god. He battles the chaotic sea against the god Yam and the death of this god Mot to establish order. So there's all this chaos that's happening with land and sea. It's kind of creating that whole like creation thing. It's like who's in charge. He's the voice of thunder. He's the lightning bolt. You see the common ground between Greek mythology and the Canaanite mythology. And, you know, so you see there's a tie in there, right?
Yeah,
There's kind of like there's a lot of those overlaps, right? And his victory can bring life-giving rains. So this is what this Baal is. Now, if you didn't know anything about Baal in modern times and his connection to Satanism, you would think this is just a creator god. This is just another mythological being, you know, like a god. But this part here, where his worship requirements to join his church, his cult involves rituals, sacrifices, often animals, and likely some sacred prostitution at high places, on islands, to ensure
on islands. Wow.
to ensure fertility of land, animal, and all of its people. And we kind of mentioned people that worship Baal and Moloch when we were talking in the Valentine's episode.
Yeah.
That's another.
We did. You're right.
Yes. On the 15th of February, they were worshiping and they were cutting the flesh off, and then they were a dog and a goat doing all these prostitution type sacrifice or rituals and whatever.
Yep.
This is kind of in that same pagan field of religion, like that type of thing.
Okay.
He was basically a god. You petition for your immediate worldly needs. Like, I need rain for my good harvest, and I need more children, so I'm going to give you this one. If I give you the one, you give me more.
You more. Okay.
Right. It'd be like someone just works hard to have children, which there is a story in the Bible of this. You take the one child and you go and you sacrifice that child, and I'll give you the rest of that you need. And the man takes the child to sacrifice, and then the angel of the Lord shows up and says, no.
Yep.
Here's your lamb. Yeah, it was Abraham and Isaac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know that one.
So that happens, you know. I mean, the whole Jewish celebration of Passover is literally they took the purest white lamb, the firstborn lamb, and cut and killed the purest lamb and brushed its blood over their the threshold of their entrances as the angel of death passed over them, and went into Egypt and killed the firstborn sons of every household.
Oh yeah.
Again, firstborn, child sacrifice. So it's a running theme. It's a whole it was like a trend word apparently back in the day.
It's a trend.
Everybody's doing it in the East. Why are we not doing it?
Why are we doing it? They're doing it over there.
Yeah. So I heard that Jeff down the street was doing sacrifices. Why are we not doing these sacrifices?
We should do it too. Let's little trend. Come on. We gotta keep up.
Yeah. So now you have that happening, but then what happens is in the biblical portrayal, so the people who are not practicing this, the people who are not in the in-group of child sacrifices, the people on the outside, they're like, Baal is primarily a rival to Yahweh. He, you know, like to the kings and the prophets, especially Elijah, there was a conflict of Yahweh and Baal being the true source of fertility and blessing for the people of Israel. Like that was the question,
okay.
like, who's truly blessing our people? So, and that's where I have this theory in modern times that if the Old Testament was riddled with Israelite people, some trying to follow the true path of Yahweh and some skirting off and hanging out with their Canaanite buds and doing all these things here, but they still kind of wanted to like blend into the cool kids over here.
Blend in with the cool kids.
Right. Who's to say that it wasn't a group of Israelite people that continued to appear like Israelite people on the outside, but practice the worship of Baal on the inside?
Oh, absolutely.
Because at the time of Jesus' death, there was more than one sect of Israelite people, of Jewish people. Okay. If nothing else, we say history repeats itself. There's no spot in the Bible where you see the Israelite people get it together and no one's veering off and doing the wrong thing and whatever.
No, it's true. It's true.
So it is, I'm not saying it's safe to say, I'm saying it's probable that it's possible there could still be sects of those type of people in the world today. On the surface, we're this, but behind the scenes, we back here like child sacrificing and like eating people.
We're still doing it. We're still eating people.
Yes. We're still having like prostitution rituals. What you talking about? It's part of the book.
I wonder, I'm hearing you talk about this and it's just can't seem to pull out of my brain what in the world could have prompted us to do an episode like this.
No idea. I have no idea. Anyways, for those listening, if you haven't figured it out, you really need to get back into society.
I mean, it's true. If you haven't figured out what it is that prompted this episode, you unfortunately are living under a rock. And I hope it is nice.
Or you're living on an island.
If you live on an island.
Okay, so let's talk about the whole Moloch character. Because people, this is something that's been thrown around. They're like, these people that were on the quote unquote island worship Moloch. Okay, here's where the identity crisis comes in. Because this is the king of the sacrificial fire. Moloch is likely derived from the Semitic root word meaning king, but it's a little bit more shadowy than that because it's not really an entity versus the event itself. It's not necessarily primarily a god's name, but it's a type of sacrifice, like the Moloch offering.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's more of a descriptor rather than a name.
But it's being used as a person.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But a crucial distinction, like I said, is the sacrifice could be an animal, a lamb, a child. And it denotes itself as a votive offering or a pledge to the deity, the Baal, which I said, remember, Baal is not technically one person because there's multiple deities within the Canaanite faith. But basically, it's all kind of like goes into one. It's like they're here, but like there's the main. It's like a pyramid scheme, I guess.
Yeah, it's a pyramid scheme.
It's one of those multi-level marketing things.
Exactly. The gods are actually an ML.
Yeah, like I have to fulfill this vow this week. I have to have at least 3 children, 2 goats, and 1 dog. Can I get you down for those?
Get down for any of those?
Yeah.
Do you want to get your friend on board too?
Can I get you in the monthly subscription to our Moloch sacrifice? Thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. This is how I get my next car.
Right. Okay, so then you have this kind of strange, like, sacrifice in Carthage that was typically for Baal, this chief god of Carthage. But, like, you realize these people are right next door to the Israelite people. So, and these things are kind of spreading. There's all this, like, information superhighway with camels and stuff. So you've got all these things spreading. And, like, this actually gets down to, like, into Egypt, like in northern Africa and where Egypt and stuff is. And that's where okay. Well, because Egypt's in northern Africa. Yeah. So you're getting that into where the Israelite people are held captive. The Hebrew people are there for 400 years. So you have these things are getting put into their generational their generational upbringing. That's why in the Old Testament, when Moses saves them and Passover happens, it takes them so long to get the commandments because these people keep breaking these codes because they keep going back and worshiping these golden cows and all these idols. Yeah. Yeah. But, so you have all this happening. There's the moving of all this stuff happening with the sacrificing and like it's kind of spreading like literal child sacrifice wildfire. And the Hebrew Bible, though, changes this and turns it into from a sacrificial term, like I said, to a proper name. So it's kind of the Bible's fault that it went from being a term of of what was happening to give to a certain god for it to become
The name of a deity.
right, the name of a god, right.
Oh.
And it presents him as a specific deity who children are passed to through fire, okay?
Okay.
And that this is in a certain valley, the valley of Hinnom. This is near Jerusalem. But it creates
wow,
this whole
okay.
pagan cult, like it's isolating these awful heathen gods is what it's doing. It's creating this whole separation. This is something that I remember sitting in church when I was in high school. I would probably have been in ninth grade, and I was having a conversation, and one of the scriptures we were reading was in the Old Testament, and it talks about how Yahweh is talking to one of his prophets and stating that, and I'm pretty sure this is Abraham. It's either Abraham or Moses. I cannot remember. I just remember it was near the base of a mountain, and both of those people were on mountains with God. But there is a section in there where God is telling him about the Canaanite people and how, pretty sure it's Moses, how they are worshiping these other gods, and that you're not, yes, it is, because it's the Ten Commandments.
Yep.
Thou shalt not put any other god before me. That's one of the commandments. I'm not sure if you're familiar with all the commandments.
Yes.
Most
I
of
know.
the people trying to get the 10 Commandments into the classroom don't even know them either, but that's fine. So when he was giving that, I thought it was very interesting to think that the commandment is to not put any other god before me, because I am the creator God, is what God, Yahweh was saying. I am the one who created everything. He never said, those gods are not real. They do not exist. They're making this crap up. He never said anything about that.
He just said that I'm the one who made everything.
You worship me, not them. Those are temporal gods. Those are ones of earth. Basically, I'm the one God. I am the creator God. So then once, of course, my studies came into play and I started researching the Hebrew stuff and everything, different words in the Hebrew Bible mean different things. So there's Elohim, there's El, E-L. If it's the L, like E-L, you're talking about one. And then there's the Elohim, which is the lesser deities. Doesn't mean that they're not gods like Yahweh. They're the lesser, like I can probably do some hat tricks and parlor tricks, and I could probably bring you some rain and maybe
probably do some hat tricks.
Like I can
I'll bring you a little bit of rain.
I can bring you probably 2 children. That's about all I can do.
I get you 2. Good to go.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, what this does, it blurs these two together, blah, blah, blah. You get this craziness. You've got these people just be like sacrificing children.
We're sacrificing left and right.
They just be sacrificing. They'd be doing prostitution. They'd be sacrificing. They'd be eating. Yeah, whatever. So the biblical distinction, again, creates a blur. A lot of things get kind of changed around, and it can cause some problems when we try to historically look back and see who these people were. But, here we are in modern times, and these things come up, and you're like, maybe it never left. So I did do some research as far as like, are there any modern versions of people practicing like this same worship of Baal? And so as fantastic as that question is, like there are people that definitely are worshiping things that are not technically God, Yahweh, or whatever. It's just, there's no evidence to say that they're still continuously practicing the worship of the Canaanite version of Baal. They may have created new versions of Baal. They may have created new revivals of the system from the old days to the 20th centuries. Because maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of felt like, hey, I'm young because this is what I'm doing, because I'm eating the capsules of young children. You know what I mean? Like now we have a modern version of the way they do it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
I could see that.
Yeah. Which that's something I'm going to get to in the next topic when we go into cannibalism is
Cannibalism.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick up that cannibal torch and talk about like the strange benefits of consuming humans.
The strange benefits of if you do go and eat your neighbor.
If you decide it's like the opposite of vegan.
I am the exact opposite of a vegan, actually. Do you have any human meat?
So with the child sacrifice, there is no canonical text in the Torah or the Old Testament that has made it to modern times that commands or endorses the sacrifice of the firstborn child to Yahweh, even though there are some innuendos that suggest that you're supposed to do that and that Yahweh was asking for that. Not to mention Yahweh did sacrifice his first son. It's one of those things that you kind of have to take it the way you want to take it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting into religious theory at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying there's no explicit text that says you have to do this.
This is what you have to do.
As far as sacrificing is a killing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like sacrificing your firstborn to be the first one to do this or that. I mean, that's a whole different story, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things like Stonehenge. Underneath Stonehenge are a lot of female bones and child and baby bones that are beneath each of some of the round stones around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
They're down below, like they were sacrificed and put down below these
put below,
dolomites.
Yeah.
Yes, beneath these stones of this ritual place are surrounded in blood, and we know from blood has power. I mean, it has it's our power source. If we don't have blood, we're dead.
Mm-hmm.
So,
mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay, sorry. That was a lot.
No, you're good. Yeah.
That was a lot for the whole, yeah.
Well, that's why this is a 2-part episode, because there's so much.
Yeah. Before we kind of segue into cannibalism, I did want to talk about the implications. Mm-hmm. So the message of child sacrifice from the ancient side, that children were, from our perspective, we think of them as barbarian. We think of them as slaughtering their children. Okay. And the challenge is you have to sometimes put yourself back there, not to give to not still be disgusted by it, because that's not what I'm trying to say. But life was sacred to them. I mean, they dealt with probably some famine. They dealt with different things or whatever. They were giving up their children to survive the entire community because they thought they had so much faith in their deity that if they give you this child, you will give me rain and abundance of fruit and vegetables for our rest of our community to live. So it was an honor for these people to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Today we look at it as barbaric, satanistic, and evil.
But for them, this was seen as this really big thing that they're like, oh, I'm able to do this. I'm able to provide this. That's going to do all this for my family. That's going to do this for my people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and so we have to understand that this establishes this template for faith, quote unquote, to be obedient, and that there is something that God or your God is going to ask you to do in return. And it's going to come not at an easy price. It's going to be a sacrifice. So I feel like this is a heavy thing because there are so many children that died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we also know as we've progressed modernly, we understand that maybe that's not necessary, but if we have a country that has their children have to be limited to one, or by this point, this has been 2011, they still would have had a one child rule. So it's highly probable that the children that were being killed, or I'm assuming that if you got pregnant, you had to abort it.
Yeah.
So it's assumed that, and usually I would assume that these things were taken care of in a private place with maybe ancient Chinese medicine where they would use the remnants of that to create these pills.
Very possible. Yeah.
Yeah. But so that's, like I said, that's going to kind of create a bridge to the next part of the cannibal thing, is because they saw this as a life-saving thing. And now we have these capsules that were the cure-all, right? These were considered to be the cure-all for things, for what they were protesting it cured with these baby pills. Yeah, so there is an overlap of modern time child sacrifice and what you're doing with it, offering it to the gods versus offering it to the human to ingest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here, we're taking this life, this sacred life, and we're giving it to you because we can't keep it alive, but we're going to have its use, and we're not going to throw it away.
So that you can be healed for this, that, the other.
Yes, there's
for whatever sickness. Yeah.
Still crazy. Just crazy.
Wild.
Any questions about child sacrifice that came up for you?
Any questions about child sacrifice? I don't think so. I think you covered child sacrifice pretty well.
Well, I just thought of something.
Which I hate to say, but
So I was just sitting here thinking, and it was me thinking about the sacredness of life. And we have talked about a type of evil, a type of entity that requires you to sacrifice something that is most loved in order to receive a power. Do you remember what that was?
Sacrifice something that is most loved. Oh, wait, that was for the, oh my goodness gracious. It was in the Shapeshifters episode, wasn't it?
The the
Yinaglushi. Yeah.
Yep, the shape-shifting. So in order for them to be able to shapeshift or to turn into the Yinaglushi, they had to...
Because they have to murder a family member.
Yeah, they had to learn how to shapeshift. They had to learn to change themselves. And they were, being lazy. And so the spiritual darkness heard them and offered them a better way. But the first thing they had to do was kill a loved one.
Wow, that's true. I didn't think about that.
So there could be some strange power in these sacrifices that they were doing. Because we know, obviously, that's crossed cultures.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm getting my nose cleaned by my cat.
Oh, good.
There, she saw her tail walk by.
I did. I seen her little silhouette and things. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Well, there's episode 1.
All right, there's child sacrifice.
Swallow that pill.
There you go. You were not going to look at any of your supplement capsules the same after this.
No, actually, I haven't. Because I take some things.
Oh, no.
And they're like powder form. I'm like, what? You know what?
What is in this?
Hold. Let's find. What would be the ingredient that you could use? When we take a break, I'm looking that up. I'm going to bring that into the next episode. What is it that you would have in your capsules that would make you question whether it is actually okay and not got human contents?
And not human flesh.
All right, until then, thank you for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can email us at info@parallaxpodcast.com, or you can go to our website, theparallaxpodcast.com, click on our little icons, follow us on social media, and give us a shout out. So until then, thank you for listening. I'm Karisa.
And I'm Willow. Goodbye, mortals.